Okay, so after that long and full of tangent rant about why neural networks and our brain are awesome, let me just go through some of the important stuff which we have to understand. Okay, so here we directly jump directly into prediction and what neural networks allow us to do. Neural networks allow us to predict. How they allow us to predict through intelligence. Okay, the thing is, it is very hard to wrap our brain around it, but what we have learned is in three dimension, in a connection structure like a TensorFlow play thing. Just a second. So in our brain, I told, right, we have around how many? 88 billion, not million. What? Do we have billion neurons? Number of neurons in humans. We have billion neurons, not million. Oh, that is awesome. Oh, I was wrong. Not million, billion. Wow. Wow. Each neuron capable of connecting to 10,000 or at least 1,000 neurons. That is insane. Anyways, you can. So, how is the intelligence? So, we found out by observing at nature that in a structure like this, even a extremely structure like this, simply through connections, neural connections, and different weights of those connections, we can encode intelligence. And intelligence is very useful. We all know. So that is what neural networks allow us to do. Neural networks allow us to do encode intelligence. Okay. And the price we pay for it is it needs to consume data, because where is intelligence hidden? Intelligence is hidden in the data. And who is going to extract that intelligence? The processing units. And they are going to extract that intelligence. And where are they going to save it? They're going to save it in the importance. So if something is more important, it will be assigned more priority. How will we know it is more priority? It will have a higher weightage, right? That's how in exams we know what is more important depending on weightage. Correct. So that's what it is. We have a prediction which is kind of like done by saving intelligence is saved in the weight value. It is called as nothing but parameter. Okay, what does it consume? It consumes data. What does it do? It predicts something. Whatever it is predicting, we will use mathematical notation. So y is equal to something something x. So y is equal to fx. Okay, that's the linear algebraic standard we are using. So y is the output, but it's still a data output. But to reach there, we have to do a lot of intelligent things. And if we somehow figure out that intelligent thing, we are done. Okay, and the basic components of what allows us to do this intelligent thing are these. Each thing is a single neuron. A base component of it is single neuron. Okay, and then for that single neuron, what do we have? Each neuron has different connection. So let me just add, let's say, two neurons each here. So as you can see here, this is connected to these two, this is connected to these two, and this is how we have, this is connected to these two, this is connected to these two. So if we look at from point of view of just this neuron, okay, let me enable pixel snap. So if I enable just this neuron, take a look at just this. Okay, this neuron is connected to these two here, correct? Okay, and its output is also going to these two. So for each neuron on the left hand side, you have input, and on the right hand side, all the places, one of their the output of this neuron is going to. And if we take a look at output as this neuron, you will see for this neuron gets everything in the previous layer. So I'm going into complicated thing. Don't focus on this aspect. Probably you can just focus on data is being saved into connections. The information intelligence is being saved into connection, and that is what we are learning. So y is part of data, x is part of data. This neural network, by simply giving it data, it can learn from it. So if we make it learn under our supervision, it is supervised learning. And because we are there to supervise, it can make less mistakes because we are training it. So AI was actually deep learning neural networks learning algorithm is quite inefficient. Okay. But despite that, simply with brute force power, that's why deep learning has taken off, right? We can simply brute force the hardware power, or simply the money we are throwing, and we can parallelly run multiple hardwares. Through brute forcing data and hardware, we can arrive at the answer. And once we get an answer, we can optimize the answer, right? So that's what we have. We have brute forced our way towards the solution, and we have learned it through data. And that, where is that knowledge saved? That knowledge is saved in the parameter values and parameter structure. Okay. And this is the data. Whatever is learning, it's this structure. Everything is present in the structure. And what are its basic component? Each neuron has connections. Each neuron has input and output. Each neuron has a variable called as bias variable with it, and each neuron has a associated weight with at each connection. So maybe I should do screenshot, and on screenshot do this editing explanation. So each neuron, which is this, okay, each neurons will have connections. Okay, so each neurons will have this connection. So if I just check as a whole, this as a whole is the entire data block. Okay, and this same block is going to this neuron as well, and the same block is going to this neuron as well. Okay, so that's what we have. We have for this neuron, these two being its connection, and it has each connection. For each connection there is weight. Depending on how big the weight value will be big. So if the weightage is higher, this will be thicker. If the weightage is lower, this will be thinner. The same is true for a neuron below. If this weightage assigned is less, the value will be less. Weightage assigned will be more, value will be more. So as you can see, for each connection there is going to be weight, and this is true for each neuron. And the same structure is replicated everywhere. But as you can see, the base structure is true for a single neuron. So master how a single neuron looks is what we are doing in this lecture. Okay, so we directly start with this aspect. Okay, we directly start with a single neuron, but I think this context behind what does it need, it learns from data. What does it learn? Pattern. Who is doing the learning? It's the function aspect which is present at each computational unit, which is nothing but neuron. So each computation unit is called as that activation function. So let me just say neuron artificial. So I think this is what it would be. This is what it would be. So in a brain, we have connection, and then there is a processing, which is the nucleus. And after we have processed, it gets sent forward. So in brain, there is a lot of different transformation happening, through either signal passes through electricity or chemicals, or, different things, more subtle things could be influencing. We can artificially just simplify it, extremely simple. We have multiple things coming in, that is the input. Each of this is a connection. Each connection has a weight associated with it, and that weight is learned. And then we have a function, this is activation function. The whole each input is multiplied with its appropriate weight, so we get its effective thing. And this neuron processes this thing, adds something to it, and its output is spent into set to other things. As you can see, it's many to many. There are multiple inputs, and they are going to multiple neurons, and this is what the neural network is. Okay, x is the input, y is the output. Y, if we predict the output, it will be y hat, and these are just some of the slides. Okay, whichever is the function which is present at the end of this neuron, right? Whatever is the function here, that function will have the it's called as activation function, and other subtle things they will be discussed further as the Andrew Ng's lectures progress. Okay, so this is going pretty cool. So, yeah, what are neural networks? They're nothing but intelligence machine. So they can take different data and derive intelligence out of it. So as you can see, this intelligence was an extremely simple intelligence. We are trying to predict price based on a very simple variable, simple size of the house. Pretty simple, and we will put a very powerful neural network on top of it. Neural network's power is actually quite scalable according to how complex the network is. Here we have put a very simple neural network, one neuron. Okay. If we have a complicated problem where instead of a house price, it is a share price, where it is dependent on different extremely complex parameters, then we would need a more complex neural network, right? Instead of 1 by 1 dimension, we might need 10 by 10 or 100 by 100. So depending on how complex the network is, you can imagine that's how complicated the intelligence it can encode and process and extract is from it. So we have housing prediction, different things. So each of these things will do their own thing, and eventually we will arrive at an answer. So X is the input, and capital X would be the every single thing which is gonna go to every single array. So entire input to each neuron is called as X. It's very subtle, but it is very important that we master these things. So this here, the input array will have x1 and x2 values. If I give in this, so entire capital X will be x1 slash x2 slash x1 square. 4 dimension. Each example will have 3 dimensions here. Now it will have 4 dimensions, 5 dimensions, 6, 7, whatever complicated thing I could do. So this is the entire complex X. Okay. So this is the input X for each neuron and the subsequent internal things, and the output would be Y. Okay. So we have the same thing, neural network, each of these connections. For value X, we have the output Y, and it is the same diagram drawn here, but drawn in a digital way. Pretty cool, right? So this is a approximate small summary of what is a neural network. Now, even though it is an extremely simple lecture, by going through this as what is intelligence and what is it capable of, and connecting this to whatever parts are coming in the future. So in future, this slide is also connected to this, how scale drives deep learning progress. Another way of reading this slide deck would be this. If I simply make my neural network more complex, it is capable of consuming more complicated data, and it is capable of extracting more complicated intelligence out of it. Right? That's how you could look at it. So yeah, these and then if we have better, faster computation, we can optimize that. If we have better algorithm, we can use that quite a bit. If we have more efficient algorithms, we can use that. If we have better organization in the algorithm, we can use that. So as you can see, many things can lead to improvement, but generally bigger data and bigger computation, generally they need led to most biggest jump in the improvement. But once that jump is happened, then we need rest of the subtle things which in combination will allow us to stabilize whatever the performance we need. So a lot of these things were covered through a extremely simple slide deck. So this is one really amazing lecture, even though beginner. So I just loved this section, and yeah, hopefully you did too. I'll check this part later.